Hello everyone, welcome. Today we are going to read this amazing book called Planes. Have you seen the movie Planes? It's so cute, na? Look at this colorful plane. So nice. Come on, let's start reading. Look at that. Okay, let's read. 3 years had passed since Dusty had won the Wings Around the Globe rally, and he had been unstoppable ever since. When Dusty wasn't racing, he spent time in his prop wash junction, where everyone was preparing for the annual corn festival. Dusty grinned. It's gonna be the biggest corn festival yet. So this is Dusty. Can you see? One day, Skipper, Dusty's coach, was pushing the champ hard in a training run. Suddenly, Dusty's engine stuttered and he fell into a spin. Dusty, Dusty, what's wrong? Skipper asked worriedly. Dusty couldn't answer because he was out of breath and felt sick. Dusty began to lose altitude. Whoa! Steady there, hollered Skipper. Luckily, Dusty regained control and Skipper helped him land safely. Here, he landed safely. Dottie, Dusty's mechanic, had bad news. Your gearbox is failing, she told him. Even worse, it couldn't be replaced because it was out of production. He was an old airplane, no? Dottie fitted Dusty with a warning gauze. If the light comes on, you need to slow down, she said. I'm so sorry. Later in the evening, Dusty wanted to prove he could still be a racer. He took off into the night sky and sped across the treetops. Suddenly, the warning light flashed. As Dusty slowed down, he looked ahead to see he was too close to a tall tower. He clipped the top of it. He crashed, landed hard and skidded right into the airport's petrol station. Look at that. That's Dusty's mechanic. The petrol station's roof collapsed and the petrol pump exploded. Kaboom! How dangerous. Mayday, the airport's fire engine, tried to put out the fire, but his leaky old fire hose was no good. Desperate, he called for volunteers to help topple a water tower. Mayday, Skipper, Chug, and Dusty pulled down the tower together and the water put out the fire. Next day, 2 safety officials declared that Prop Washers Junction Airport would be shut down until Mayday was upgraded and a second certified firefighter was hired. The corn festival would have to be cancelled. Dusty felt bad about the fire and wanted a way to help. He realized he could be the prop washer's new firefighter. The next day, Dusty flew off towards the air attack base in Piston Peak National Park. Mayday's friend Blade Ranger, the head of the base, had agreed to train Dusty. Dusty arrived just in time to see Dipper, Cabby, Windlifter, and Smoke Jumpers spring into action as they were called to a fire. Blade, a rescue copter, was already on the scene. Dusty watched as he dumped fire retardant into the blaze. Everyone worked together. Back at the base, Dusty explained he was there to be trained as a firefighter. Maru, the mechanic, replaced Dusty's landing gear with pontoons. I rebuilt these, he proudly said. They're better than new. Look at that. Dusty's training started at the Anchor Lake with lessons on how to fill his pontoons with water. Then Blade tested Dusty's low altitude flying at Ogren Canyon. Dusty aced the course. During the training, Dusty's warning light flashed on and made him back off. If you don't push it, Blade warned, you won't be certified. The next day, Dusty practiced putting out flaming barrels. After trying again and again, hitting one target was the best he could do. Dusty headed back to the hangar discouraged. But Skipper Chug Doughty radioed him some good news. They had found him a new gearbox. Wow, thanks. That's the best news, replied Dusty. He couldn't have been happier. Just then, Park Superintendent Cad Spinner arrived. When Cad realized Dusty was the famous racer, he excitedly invited him to the grand reopening of his lodge. But Blade was worried because he knew that Cad had packed too many visitors into the lodge before, which was a fire risk. After a hard day firefighting a large fire, Dusty's Dipper, Windlifter and Maru arrived at the lodge's reopening party. Dusty met Harvey and Winnie, a couple celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. They were trying to find the spot where they had first kissed. Harvey described that it was near a waterfall. That sounds like Ogren Canyon, said Dusty helpfully. Dusty hung out with his new firefighter friends at the party. They told him that all had jobs before they started firefighting fires. Dusty realized that life without racing might not be so bad. They are partying. The next morning, Dusty received some disappointing news from back home. The gearbox had arrived, but it was the wrong one. Dusty couldn't believe it. His racing days were over. Moments later, Dusty and the firefighters were called to action. There were 2 new wildfires. The fires were moving towards the lodge. Maru radioed the lodge and told Cad to get everyone out, but Cad refused. He wasn't about to let a little fire spoil his celebration. After the news from home, Dusty was distracted and he didn't pay attention to Blade's orders. So Blade told him to return to base. Instead, Dusty flew down to the lake and to load his platoons. But his nose hit the water and his engine stalled. Not able to fly, Dusty drifted over the waterfall. Blade swooped in, threw a line to Dusty and swung him to safety. On the ground, Dusty confessed that he had to give up racing. Blade sighed, "Life doesn't always go the way you expect it. But you came here to become a firefighter, so don't give up." But there was no time to rest. The fire was closing in fast. They took shelter inside an old mine, and Blade used his body to shield Dusty from the heat. When the fire had burnt past, the two slowly emerged. Blade was badly damaged and crashed as he tried to take off. Dusty radioed the base for help. Meanwhile, the fire closed in on the lodge and everyone was evacuated. But as they tried to leave, the path was blocked by a burning tree. Back at base, Windlifter took command as Blade recovered and the firefighters put out the fires that surrounded the guests. But not everyone had escaped. Harvey and Winnie were trapped on the burning bridge in Ogeron Canyon. Dusty flew to the waterfall to fill his pontoons. He had to push hard as he pulled straight up and skimmed the face of the waterfall. The warning light flashed red. Dusty managed to drop the water on the flames and save his friends, but his engine cut out and he crashed into the forest. Days later, Dusty, still groggy, rolled out of Maru's hangar. His firefighter friends were there to greet him. Maru had good news for Dusty. Not only that he had patched up Dusty on the outside, he had used spare parts to build him a custom-made gearbox. "I'd say you earned that certification," said Blade. Dusty cranked the engine and the propeller sprang into life. "Better than new," said Maru. Dusty was glad to be home. While he was away, Dottie had completely updated Mayday. Now that the prop wash had 2 certified firefighters, it was open for business again. The corn festival got into full swing. Ladies and gentleplanes, the Corn Fest is proud to present the Piston Peak Air Attack Team and our very own Dusty Crophopper, announced Chug. Everyone cheered as the firefighters flew by. Then Dusty, with his engine pushed to the max, came in low and soaked every target. Bullseye! The end. See you next time.